Sam Levinson and The Weeknd's co-created HBO show The Idol has been a hot topic of discussion since it premiered on June 4th.
From the worst X-rated scenes in the history of television to The Weeknd's Dracula hairline, people on social media have had a lot to talk about. Hey, I'm your host Bridget.
And I'm your host Aaron, and here's our top 10 funniest social media reactions to the HBO's The Idol. Some of them have me wishing the random Twitter users wrote this show instead. At number 10, we got excruciating scenes. This one comes from Twitter user Jakira J, who wrote, "The last few minutes of this episode was just this all over again. Please stop." What this user is referring to is a scene from Levinson's other show Euphoria. In the season finale of Euphoria, Dominic Fike's character Elliot performs an obnoxious rendition of a song aptly named Elliot's Song. The scene barely reached the 3-minute mark, but viewers responded in such a way that would make you think the song lasted the entire span of the hour-long episode. It's no doubt why episode 2 of The Idol made watchers feel a similar way. The episode concluded with an excessively crude X-rated scene that would have made anyone uncomfortable. It only went on for 3 minutes, but the flinch-worthy dialogue alongside the generally boring vibe of the scene made it feel like an eternity.
Number 9, The Weeknd's acting. One person tweeted, "The funniest part of The Idol is that The Weeknd's acting makes him seem that he's in a completely different show than the rest of the cast." And this one really sums up one of the main criticisms of the show. The Weeknd, whose real name is Abel Tesfaye, plays a guy called Tedros, a seedy nightclub owner who manipulates rising pop star Jocelyn into his modern-day cult. While the premise of the series always sounded promising, one of the first things fans loved to question was Abel's acting ability. There's no doubt that he makes great music and is a wonderful performer. However, it was always going to be a challenge for him to take on such a big role with so little experience in front of the camera, aside from his music videos. He briefly appeared in the movie Uncut Gems a few years ago, playing himself of course, but even that seemed a little rocky, so it's possible that he bit off more than he can chew with The Idol. The general consensus is that he fails to convince the audience that he is really this bad guy Tedros that he portrays on screen. There is one scene in the mirror where he practices smiling and saying lines over and over, but even that somehow falls flat. It could be the kind of thing he's going for, but in an effort to appear serious, he lacks any real emotion at all.
At number 8, we have hate watching. This one comes from Twitter user Big Business, who wrote, "The Idol is outlandish, disgusting, and promotes deviant behavior. I'll be watching this every Sunday." There's no question that The Idol is awful to some, objectively promoting harmful and toxic ideals which are almost shocking for an HBO show. However, it's hard to resist a good hate watch, and personally, I love to hate. If The Idol did nothing else, it definitely caught an audience's attention. Some would say the show is like a car crash in the way that it's hard to look away. No matter how much we talk about the disgusting behavior it promotes, it's hard not to be curious about what direction the show's going in next, or what sick, twisted fantasy Sam Levinson may unleash on his audience. And hey, it's always good to have something to look forward to, even if it is something you find quite awful.
Number 7, Damage Control. One user tweeted, "The Weeknd on the phone with his manager after every new episode of The Idol. Get me another GQ interview. They're on Twitter making fun of me again. We need to remind them that I am satirically acting. This is satire." So basically, ever since the first episode aired, Abel has been rushing to try and defend certain scenes. Many of his scenes are getting criticized, and he feels the need to constantly assert that it's satire. Therefore, it gets some kind of pass from all the criticism. He addressed one particular sex scene in episode 2, which has been mocked relentlessly online. Around 40 minutes in, Jocelyn and Tedros head into the bedroom, where he blindfolds her and positions her on the bed. There were so many issues with this scene from a female perspective. The thing that people really took issue with most was the dirty talk. It was so embarrassingly bad to the point where it was unwatchable. Speaking about that moment, The Weeknd insisted that it was not actually supposed to be sexy. He said that it was meant to make us all uncomfortable. He claimed that this scene was inspired by the movie Basic Instinct, and said that he expected people to feel some kind of discomfort or be embarrassed for the characters. But even though it was intended to come off that way, it doesn't necessarily make it an important part of the story.
And coming in from that, we got number 6, Wattpad-esque dialogue. This one's from Twitter user OddRCLL, who wrote, "Wait, The Idol is so good when they focus on Jocelyn's life until that corny The Weeknd came and ruined the show with the Wattpad dialogue. Overall, the show has definitely been tainted with the touch of Sam Levinson. However, when the focus is on Lily Rose Depp, I can't lie, it's pretty compelling. The girl can act, and her storyline has the potential of being something really exciting. Given what she's working with, she is crushing it. In fact, it's an indication of her being very talented. This goes for most of the other actors that make up Jocelyn's team. It's a pretty stacked cast, and they all do their job quite well. The real trouble comes from the writing, which sometimes is reminiscent of something a 13-year-old girl who just downloaded Tumblr wrote at 3 AM. Although I'm sure someone like that could have done a better job. The Weeknd really makes this writing his own. Now, I wish I could blame the writing and take the fault fault off the guy, but his performance really doesn't do him much justice either.
Number 5, the hairbrush scene. As a reaction to the 3rd episode, one user tweeted, "Not Tedros asking for the hairbrush, #TheIdol." It seems like each episode of The Idol is striving to be more sick and more twisted than the next. In the first episode, we got the scene with the red cloth over Jocelyn's face. In the second one, we got what was called the worst sex scene in history. And in the third, we got this very quick scene with a hairbrush. But the significance here was not lost on anyone. About halfway through the episode, Jocelyn finally opens up about what her mother was really like. She tells Tedros that she was physically violent towards her as a child, and many of these incidents involved a specific hairbrush that she would get hit with. Her mother allegedly did this to keep her in line and keep her motivated to work hard in the music business. For some sick reason, Tedros then decides that Jocelyn needs to get that motivation back, which is why she's feeling stuck in her career. He then asks her to get the hairbrush and bring it to him, and then proceeds to hurt her with it while the rest of the group watches on. After this, just judging from the viewer's reaction, you can tell it's not something people actually want to see. It's just another scene that was put in the show as a way to exploit the lead character further.
At number 4, we have Weeknd's Woman Cut. This one comes from Twitter user Trey Tyler, who writes, "The Weeknd reading the Idol script, seeing too many lines for women." This caption was accompanied by a video of Delta Work reading notes on RuPaul's Drag Race while crying and saying that he's terrified. This is in context to The Weeknd completely overhauling the entire project when he felt his female co-star was getting too much screen time and wanted to shift the storyline to feature more of his own character. This, coupled with how his character treats women, has led some to believe that he may have the tendency to dislike or fear if women have some power in a situation.
Number 3, holding the creators accountable. When speaking of the controversy, one user tweeted, "I hate how all the very deserved backlash and criticism The Idol is receiving from everyone, the public and the critics, is getting buried by D-list influencers getting paid to try and hype it up, and biased fans who can't accept that their faves being held accountable." Back in March, Rolling Stone published an explosive report which claimed that production of the series had become wildly, disgustingly off the rails, and turned into an X-rated movie. 13 anonymous sources from production described the chaotic and toxic set. The Idol was originally set to be directed by a female director called Amy Seimetz, but in April, she was allegedly fired. And how did Abel respond to all of this controversy? Well, in the worst way possible. He failed to address any of the concerns in the report and simply tweeted, "Rolling Stone, did we upset you?" But his smug response drew swift backlash from critics. Not only did he fail to respond to these shocking allegations, but he chose to drag Rolling Stone itself and label it as an irrelevant publication. Luckily, he did get called out. Culture writer Jordan Cricciolo wrote, "This is a very glib way to respond to corroborated accounts of an unprofessional and possibly compromising work environment where the crew says they're being mistreated."
And number 2, we have the Rolling Stone feud, as talked about in the aforementioned point. This one comes from Twitter user Chateau Bunny, who writes, a little sketch. Rolling Stone would say, "We've uncovered scripts and sources on The Idol being a violent fantasy with misogynistic shock value," where The Weeknd would say, "You're just pressed our show called you irrelevant." This tweet is talking about Mr. Weeknd's one and only response to the Rolling Stones expose on the show. The magazine uncovered scathing cast and crew critiques, as said before, some uncovering the faults of the show script, and others the horrible treatment of the female members of the team. This led The Weeknd to do nothing more than post a clip of The Idol where The Weeknd calls Rolling Stone irrelevant, and a caption that read, "Did we upset you?" An incredibly lazy and immature move that shows just how well The Weeknd handles serious and sincere criticism.
And coming in at number 1, I can't stop watching. This one TikTok says it all. It starts off with a person insisting that The Idol is not for them, before breaking out into choreography straight from the show. This is hilarious because so many people feel the same way. They might not love the series, but you can bet that they watch it anyway. The Idol is kind of like a train wreck in that you know it's a disaster, but you still can't look away. The critic score sits at 27% on Rotten Tomatoes, which means that it's not exactly an Oscar-worthy show. Though at the same time, there is really no lack of people complaining about it and hate watching it, either because they want to find something new to hate about it, or because they're holding out for hope that it might actually get better. I'm definitely one of those people. Although it's not a perfect show and it's actually really problematic, you can tell that there is an interesting story woven in there somewhere. It's just getting blocked by unnecessary sex scenes and questionable writing. There are some moments that are actually hilarious and real, but the thing is you need to work really hard to ignore the other stuff if you actually want to see it through.
And that's our top 10 list of the funniest social media reactions to the HBO's The Idol.
Let us know if we missed anything in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one.